Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set? Cocked, locked, hit. Here we go. Your dial set correctly to USA Prepares. We're delighted you're with us in class today. And from high top the Missouri Ozark Mountains, we broadcast 2 hours a day. If you'd like to call us, we'll pay for the call, 866-582-9933, 866-582-9933. That's during the hours of 9 a.m. through 11 a.m. Central. If you'd like to take us with you on your phone, those of you who have phones that are portable, 605-562-4080 or 605-477-3249. 605-477-3249. Dr. Rams with us, Dr. Richard Allen Miller. Welcome, Rick.
Good morning. My voice is gone. Don't worry about that.
I'm not worried at all. Just, okay. 2 hours of silence. 2 hours of good. 2 hours of silence. We'll be fine. Hey, Rick, I was talking with Mackenzie, our engineer, our broadcast engineer this morning, just as we were getting to start the broadcast. And, within like a couple seconds before, literally. And I was telling him this story. And I said, he was referring to the position that the engineers have as board operators. And I said, no, I don't like to call them board operators. I like to call them broadcast engineers. Because I said it's really critical what you do. And if you make a mistake, everybody's going to know. Now, they won't know it's Mackenzie, but they'll know a mistake has been made. And I said, it reminds me of a guy that I was interviewing when I had a job at the bank. And this was a young man, and he was sitting across from me. And I didn't like sitting across the desk. So I would bring my chair around, so that we'd be like, not necessarily knees to knees, but, we'd be sitting on the same side in front of the desk rather than me behind the desk and him in front of the desk. So we're sitting, chatting, and I had his resume in my hand, and I was reading it, and I said, I was looking at your work experience on your resume, and I noticed something that's pretty interesting. Hydroceramic technician. He said, oh, yeah. I used to wash dishes at the restaurant. And then, which I thought was, really kind of clever and bright. And I thought, here's a guy that I'm interested in. He's thinking way above and beyond what, most people interviewing for this particular position most people wouldn't be that creative. So, and then I said, and here's another one, jacket writer, Jacket, jacket writer. I thought, all right, I give up. What's a jacket writer? And he said, on hardcover books, the dust cover, the jacket. Well, I would write what the book's about. So, okay. So you did a lot of reading, I guess. He said, no, not really. I'm thinking, so this hydroceramic technician was a jacket writer, and naturally you'd think if you were going to write the jacket on a book, on a hardcover book, prior to its publication and release, that these people would have read the entire book. I said, oh, no. I just kind of peruse the book, look at a little bit here and there, and then write the jacket. So what I'm saying is, here we have a case where a young guy was writing the marketing material, or some of the marketing material, as to why you should read this book on the jacket, and he never really completely read the books. So it kind of sounds like the rest of marketing, right? Getting people to buy what they don't want because they don't need them with money they don't have? Isn't that what marketing is now? I think it is. So just, that was from the 1980s, that story. I just wanted to share that with you. So Rick, let me share another story with you. Another true story. We do a lot of our, actually we do all of our own mechanic work here on the farm. So if we have a tractor that's down, or a baler that's down, or a rake, or whatever it is, a truck, car, whatever the problem is, we fix it ourselves. And I absolutely refuse to pay sales tax if I can avoid paying sales tax to the state of Missouri because it's a corrupt state and they'll waste the money. So we buy parts on the internet and we have them shipped in. And one of the companies that we buy parts from is called Rock Auto, ROCKAUTO. Now, you can save about 25% or maybe a little bit more on auto parts for vehicles and trucks from them. No question about it. However, lately it is really, really difficult to deal with them. And I'll tell you why. So our son was working on a Dodge 3/4 ton pickup truck, and he was working on the brakes, and he noticed that the brake pads were wearing unevenly on one side. So the inner pad was wearing differently from the outer pad. Now, brake pads are relatively inexpensive. For $20, you can get a set of brake pads. Well, he determined that the problem was these pins. These are bolts that run from one side of the caliper half to the other side of the caliper half, and they're like little sleeves, little pieces of pipe, if you will, that are polished. And so he decided that he would get a set for the one side of the truck, and then, probably the other side could use those pins being replaced as well. So a set would be 2 bolts and 2 sleeves, if you will. So we ordered 2 sets, one for the left side of the car or truck and one for the right. And they arrived, and he opened the packing material and looked at it and said, okay, we got 2 boxes here, obviously the 2 sets. Looked at one of them. Everything looked right. And then about a month later, he decided that it was time to get the truck up on the lift because the lift was clear. Nothing was in front of, in the line ahead of him. And we have a lift at our farm. And so he put the car on the lift, took the brakes apart, and then he realized that in the package, one set was mismatched. The set that he opened was perfect. The set that he did not open in another box, small box, had 2 rollers. They were correct, but one of the bolt pins was completely different. It didn't look the same. It was really far off. Way off. I mean, it didn't even look similar. Let alone it was the wrong size. It didn't even look similar. So he called Rock Auto, and the first thing they did was blame him for waiting so long. It's his fault. His fault because he waited over 30 days. My son doesn't take that too well, and he said, I didn't cause this problem. You guys sent me the wrong part. And so our son, and now how much do these parts cost? About $4. So Rock Auto wanted him to send them back. And he said, are you kidding me? It'll cost me more to send them back than if I just go buy the part locally. Finally, Rock Auto agreed to send him a replacement part, which was kind of nice. But they kind of beat him up on the way, saying, it's your fault for waiting over 30 days. That's part 1. Here's part 2 of the story. So a couple days ago, I wanted to change the oil in our John Deere 2950 tractor. It's a 100 horsepower tractor. And I've been using Fram oil filters, a PH20A. And it's kind of a large spin-on oil filter. So I got on the internet, and I thought, wow, I remember buying the last dozen or so I bought, last case was about $4. They've gone way up. The local auto parts place wanted $11. So I found an equivalent, a substitute made by AC Delco, about $4 and change a piece. And Rock Auto online said they had 17 of them, so it's okay, I'll buy 17 of them. So I clicked 17, clicked ground shipping. Everything was good. I had a 5% coupon online that you can get. And by the way, if you're going to buy from Rock Auto, just type in Rock Auto space coupon, and you'll get a code, and you can paste that code into the "How did you hear about us?" line on their order form. And you get 5% off. And I've been doing that for years. So anyway, I ordered 17 oil filters, paid for them, clicked through, shipping, everything's good. And it says, thank you for your order. Your order's being processed. Here's your order confirmation number. So everything's good. Next day, we get a call. They left a message. We don't have them. We don't have the oil filters. Really? So I called them up, waited on hold for about, 20, 30 minutes. And I talked to a guy, and he said, we don't have them. I said, okay, so how about substituting something else, something equivalent for those Fram oil filters? Well, we can't do that. Why? Well, we can't do that. What we're going to do is we're going to give you some amount off on the replacement order. Well, how much do they give off? Well, $10 plus a little bit off on shipping. And so it costs more. It costs a lot more to buy replacement oil filters than the ones I originally bought from them. So here's the point I'm trying to make. I don't know if it's just Rock Auto or whether this is a symptom that's happening all over our country in commerce, where you go to buy something and you think you bought it and you didn't buy it because they don't have it. Or if they do have it, someone didn't pack the box correctly and is careless. And when this happens and you're working on a vehicle, typically you take that vehicle apart. And once you start taking it apart, it is not roadworthy. Well, maybe because the wheel's off, or a brake caliper is off, or an axle is off, or you've taken part of the engine apart. So you don't have use of the vehicle. You think you got the right parts, but you may not. And in my case, I'm looking out the window at this John Deere tractor that I parked with the baler on it in the driveway, right in the way, because I figured, well, first of all, it's my mistake. I thought I had an extra oil filter, but I didn't. So I had to order them. So there's an extra 3 days delay in getting these oil filters. All my fault, probably, because I should have had them already, but I didn't. What I'm saying is there's a lot of carelessness going on. Now, was it carelessness of the guy who said, we've got 17 of them, and we don't have 17? Or did somebody steal them? They used to have 17, and someone went out the back door with 17? I don't know what happened, but I didn't get them. I didn't get those Fram oil filters because they didn't have them. They said they did, but they didn't. Carelessness is going to be getting more expensive and more expensive here for those of us who are dependent on systems that aren't exactly accurate. I just wanted to share that. We'll be right back. So, Rick, I was talking about the supply chain and how we depend on it and how it's not as reliable as we might want it to be. Do you have anything that you'd like to comment about that?
I think that everybody is noticing a change in the way services are. They're no longer services. We've talked about this before, where, now services are to protect themselves from lawsuits rather than trying to help you and give you what you're actually seeking. I've noted a complete change. Snap-on and Craftsman no longer exist as I understood them.
Yeah,
and,
okay.
The quality of tools, it used to be you had a choice of Best Buy or cheapest. Today, it's all about cheapest. There is no such thing as Best Buy anymore.
So, Rick, I went into Sears. I've been procrastinating. I just don't like going into Sears anymore. It's like an empty warehouse, with shelves and red and black and colors in the Craftsman tool department. And I brought with me a punch. Now, this thing is, probably 5 inches long, 4 inches long. Has a chrome vanadium steel shaft. And I used it in the 1970s and 1980s to drive roll pins out of an old English sports car that I had when I used to have to work on the rear independent suspension all the time. So I bought this tool specially for that and hardly used it. And several months ago I needed to use it, and I just tapped it with a hammer, and the shaft broke in half. That's okay, because it's a Craftsman and it's got a lifetime warranty. So I finally forced myself to bring it to Sears and get a replacement. Well, The one that I had was brightly polished. It was chrome plated. It was a really, really nice made in America tool. And I was looking all over for it, and this woman came up to me and she said, "Can I help you?" And I said, "That'd be great. I'm looking for one of these." And it has the part number stamped right inside of it. We couldn't find it. We couldn't find it because they don't make it like that anymore. Well, they have a new, improved replacement. It has less material in it. It's no longer chrome plated. It's smaller. And I said, I don't know if I want that. I mean, the one I have is really nice. The new one has the same part number, but it's not the same. I would say the material, they've successfully removed about 1/3 of the material out of this punch. Now, it's just one solid piece of metal. It's not like it has a plastic comfort grip on it, you know. No, it's just one solid piece of metal. It was a really top-of-the-line tool. It was probably, if I remember correctly, either $4.49 or $4.99 at the time. The new one is $6.99, but the new one doesn't compare, it doesn't hold a candle to the old one. So I said, you know what? I don't think I want the new one. I'll just keep my old one, even though it's broken. And so, you know, when you talk about the changing landscape of retail, we've got warranties that aren't worth the image that they're presented on, because this gal who was a store employee at Sears really could not figure out how to make the transaction work. To, even if I said, okay, I'll take this new lesser quality one, the new one with less material in it that weighs 1/3 less, okay, can you make that transaction happen? If I said that, she still couldn't make the transaction happen because the system wouldn't let her. The system wouldn't let her do that. The only way that she could have swapped those was to say, okay, let's go over here where the cameras aren't on us, and I'm going to give you this, and then you run out the door real fast. That's the only way she could have done it. Because the system is preventing her from doing what Sears employees used to do. And I know that it was really simple, because back in the 70s and the 80s, if you had a Sears Craftsman ratchet, and I worked for Sears as one of my very first jobs as a mechanic, I know that if you brought in a ratchet, you'd go to the Craftsman counter where they had the cash register. You'd say, I've got this ratchet and it's broken. They'd say, well, let's get another one. They'd hand it to you. No paperwork, no sales receipt, nothing. You'd get your new ratchet and you'd walk out the door, and nobody would stop you and say, where'd you get that ratchet, boy? They wouldn't do that. I mean, it was a wonderful experience. They treated you like they should. Now it's different. Now nobody's trusted. We'll be right back. Dr. Richard Alan Miller's with us. Website, richardallenmiller.com, Richard, A-L-A-N, Miller.com. Class, just as a quick update. So I went to eBay during the break, and yep, I found that punch. I did, the same one that I wanted warranted by Sears, and it is $8. $8. So that $4.49 or $4.99 punch that I had bought years ago is now $8. Bob in Michigan, welcome. You're on with Dr. Richard Alan Miller and me, Vincent Ellie.
Yeah, good morning, Vince. I hear your dilemma. Maybe I can help you out there. Did you say you were looking for a filter for your tractor?
Well, yeah, and I found them. And I was able to get them for a little bit more money. I bought 17 of them again. Originally, I think they were $4.41 or $4.43 each, shipped, delivered, and I ended up getting them for $5.18. But I bought 17 of them, and I figured, they're only going to keep going up. I mean, and the quality is probably going to go down. So that's what I did. But what's your solution?
Well, I know a store in my area that has a bunch. Was it a Fram filter?
Yes, it was a Fram PH20A. That's the model number.
H20. I'll check and see, because I know a store that's got a bunch of old Fram filters for sale cheap.
Yeah, new old stock?
Yeah.
Yeah, and by the way, Bob, since you mentioned this new old stock, I kind of like buying things that are new old stock. In class, what we mean by that is it's unused. It's new, but it's old.
Yeah.
And what we mean by that is not previously used. It's a new item, not worn, not used, not installed. It's new in the box, but it was manufactured years ago. And typically new old stock would be something from the 1980s, maybe 1970s. And there are items that I like to buy that are new old stock. For example, if I were going to have an old AMX, American Motors vehicle, two-seater, and it was built in 1968. And so when I buy parts for that, I like buying new old stock, as long as it doesn't have rubber parts that have disintegrated, from the ozone. Other than that, new old stock is fine. New old stock would be like ignition points, distributor caps, those kind of things. Even oil filters, as long as they were in the box and as long as moisture didn't get to them and cause them to rust. Even surface rust I'm not interested in. But, new old stock is great.
Yeah.
Rick, you have a comment?
Well, no, I'm just listening to you guys. I don't do it that way myself. Wished I had the money that I could buy inventory.
Well, Rick, no. It's not like that. It's not like that, and I'll tell you why. And one oil filter from the local Bandits would be $11, okay? $11 plus a little over 8% tax. So roughly $12 for one oil filter. I can get oil filters for half that, less than half that. And actually, I could get almost 3 oil filters for the price of one by buying it on the internet. So that's what I try to do. But the problem is you have to balance the shipping cost with the per item cost. So for me, the sweet spot was 17 oil filters. Because originally I got 17 oil filters shipped for $3.99. I can hardly ship a letter, with 1.5 ounces of something for that much money. Yeah.
Yeah, the post office rates have just gone up recently, too.
Right.
The post office is still the cheapest thing that I've ever used over UPS, FedEx, DHL. To lend a book, a $20 book in England costs $22.
And that is that's the media rate, correct?
That's the media rate. Well, they don't have media. See, that's the deal. The United States is the only place that has media.
Yeah.
And
right.
so
well,
everything goes first class. And
right.
That's right. And when you buy 3 books, now you're still closer to, maybe shipping to Canada. Canada is also expensive. They do not either. That means that people like Amazon that print on demand in the country and then distribute from that country. But to do it from the United States, and now I've got secondary problems because I used to think that the U.S. Postal Service was the only thing the U.S. government ever actually did right. And now they're hamstringing it so badly that now we have crooks within, if it's bulk mail, they have a right to go in and inspect to confirm that it's media, that you're not trying to slip a deal on them. I have no problem with that. The problem is they don't put the product back in the package. And I am now averaging 50% with West Coast. That means it's a sorting situation up in Seattle as opposed to Eugene or Medford, where that would go to the Midwest or the East Coast. And when I can't help but think it's, what do you call it, conspiracy, because it's just too consistent. I don't know what to think of it.
What you're saying is, you're saying the product is not.
They take the product out to inspect it, and they don't put it back in. They send the package empty.
Yeah. Bob, you're in the business of shipping your products, right? Have you experienced that your products don't always get where they're supposed to? Either they're damaged or you got big footprints on them like we used to get with our computers on the cases. What are your experiences?
Well, actually, I found most of my shipping is through the post office. I've been real happy with their service. And I mean, I've
never had a problem myself. I agree. Never.
Yeah.
Until recently.
Toronto, when Canada went on strike, Toronto actually was vandalizing people's mail as a protest or something. And not BC, but Toronto. That happened. And I figured that's Canadian, that's that. But U.S. Postal Service, I've been very impressed with everybody. And yet, 50% of my packages this last 2 weeks have been opened and damaged. They take one or more items out and keep them.
Now, in Bob's case, in your case, let me contrast what I think the difference between your packages and Rick's are. Rick's are CDs, okay? And they, thin, small, and they'll fit in a 5x7 envelope. Now, your packages, Bob, you manufacture speaker grills for vintage stereo equipment like JBL and some others, top of the line. So your product, if someone were to steal one of your grills, it wouldn't fit too many current production speakers, would it?
It'd be worthless to them.
Yeah,
so.
Right.
Yeah. So.
Right, and I know a coin dealer who used to ship coins through the U.S. mail and no longer could do that because so many of them went missing. And he had to keep replacing them, and the post office would say, okay, we'll look into it. Now, like asking...
The only place that I've ever had trouble was Singapore and Vietnam and Mexico. Mm-hmm. Those are the places that, I won't ship unless there's some sort of insurance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But when you're doing bulk, trying to get a cheap rate to the people so that their book is not expensive, it's impossible.
I wanted to send some coffee mugs to one of our instructors outside the United States. Just 3 of them. And so I packed them really carefully and put them into a box. And I put cardboard between the handles so that they wouldn't bang and so that they could survive, the airplane trip over there. And I put that box in another box. And now we're just talking 3 coffee mugs, right? $66.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's for U.S. Postal Service postage. $66. I was kind of surprised at that.
Well, when it's overseas. Yeah.
Well, it's because they don't have the equivalent of ground transportation. In the United States, if you want to send it priority, it costs more to get it there in a shorter time versus what used to be called parcel post. Now everything is priority. Well, it really doesn't have to be priority for these coffee mugs, but I guess they figured out that we're willing to pay it. We're just, we've got no choice that's viable, so they just raise their rates. And I've been noticing that on lots of things. Lots of companies are raising rates. And for example, I talked with someone yesterday who was in Pennsylvania. Diesel fuel in Pennsylvania is $3.10 a gallon. And diesel fuel here in Missouri is about $2.49, $2.59.
Oh.
That's a big difference. And I've noticed that at truck stops, and when we talk about where we have no choice, where are these tractor trailers going to go? They have no choice but to refuel at a truck stop. Now, it used to be that Flying J and Pilot truck stops, if you pulled in your automobile or your light, half-ton pickup truck in there, you would get fuel at a lower price than those small mom-and-pop gas stations or those small chain gas stations. Fuel would be cheaper at the truck stop. Why? Because they bought so much more fuel that they could pass the savings on. Well, that doesn't happen anymore. Now, if you pull into a truck stop, you're going to pay more. A lot more. Like maybe 30 to 40 cents a gallon more for diesel fuel at a truck stop than you would at a small filling station. Why? I believe it's because they've got these 18-wheeler trucks by the throat. And they can do it, because where else are they going to go? They can't pull into these small mom-and-pop gas stations and diesel stations. Just my thought. Bob, do you have anything else you want to share with us?
Well, off line, I wanted to give you some information.
Okay, very good. You can give me a call. Do you have my number? Hey, Rick, during the break, I was talking with Mackenzie, our broadcast engineer, about the kind of products that Bob, who just called in from Michigan, manufactures. And class, if you have a pair of vintage speakers, and I'm talking about like Altec Lansing, maybe Marantz, for sure JBL, James B. Lansing, like the L100s. Bob manufactures the grills, the replacement grills. And I know for a fact that these grills, the original ones, if you got them, they came in a blue, an orange, or a brown. They were like an egg crate foam. And by now, actually 20 years ago, if you touched them, they would disintegrate. Literally, they would crumble just by the touch of your fingers. Or if you rubbed your finger lightly across the surface of them, they would crumble. Well, I looked at what JBL L100 speakers would cost on eBay right this moment. $1,699 for a pair plus $45 shipping. $1,500 for a pair plus $185 shipping. Here are two of them, $899 plus $232 shipping. $900 plus $187 shipping. So these are really expensive. And I know that when they were manufactured in the 70s, that they were available for about $300 for a pair. So anyway, I just wanted to share that with our class. That's who Bob is, and he makes those replacement speaker grills. But very few people are in the market for them because there are very few of these high-end audio speaker systems that are out there. But those who have them, every one of them needs a new replacement grill because they all crumbled. So I just wanted to share that. Rick, would you like to talk about the weather? For example,
well, you know,
the 6 inches of extra snow, La Nina, is going to bring, expected to bring very, very cold, wintry weather to the northeast, possibly a white Christmas. Temperatures in the northern plains could fall to below 30 degrees, below zero. The northeast and mid-Atlantic states face more snow than normal. The winter of 2016, 2017 spawned colossal storms, dropping 140% of normal snowfall over the northern plains and northern Rockies. It looks like, according to AccuWeather, it looks like we are going to expect a pretty rough winter. Do you have any information you'd like to share?
Well, you know, the Inuit have said that the pole has shifted. That's, in other words, the Earth is wobbling more. That alone is going to change the weather. Then, add to that, there are 4 new planets out near Saturn. Where did they come from? Well, they're part of the binary system that came in from the Oort cloud on their way through our solar system, and that's changing things. And then, of course, the sun itself is changing. And that's the bottom line. What the sun does is what determines our weather. And right now, we've got hardly any currents going anymore, which means we're going to need a reboot. Antarctica and Iceland are both dropping big chunks of icebergs into the ocean, which is raising the level of the sea, desalinating it. We're going to have a reboot. And that is, I don't know how severe it's going to be. One time, it was an ice age. It may not last long, like 10 days, like the movie The Day After Tomorrow. It'll be a quick reboot. How bad it is, I don't know. I don't know. However, it's all good because we've been here before. We're here again. It's right on schedule, approximately. We've dropped ice ice samples, doing ice core samples, and we can see that it is a cyclic situation. It isn't. And you asked me if this is an epoch. Yes, we're at the end of an era. I don't know where we're going to go with this. I'm not depressed. There it is. You can expect change.
I'm worried because I know how miserable it is for the animals who live outside. It's rough on them. It's rough on the cows. We come back. Can we talk about electric vehicles and the grid?
Sure.
We'll be right back. Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? Hour number 2 of USA Prepares. Dr. Richard Alan Miller's with us. Hey, Rick, we right outside the back door, we have this fenced-in area that we put up a temporary fence with electric fence tape. And we have this calf, this bull calf there. And the reason we have him is his mama neglected him. So, we had to take care of him and feed him by hand and that kind of thing and nourish him back to health. And he's getting pretty close to being healthy. And he's the guy that our son would have to wade into a pond. He'd walk out into the middle of a pond and get stuck. And so our son would, put a rope around his neck and lead him out of the mud, out to where it was safe on dry ground. And it happened over and over again. So this calf got named Dopey, D-O-P-E-Y. And it's a darn good thing we don't have neighbors, because I just went out to see Dopey during the top of the hour break, and I was looking for him. I'm calling for him. Hey, Dopey. Now, I'm not sure if we had neighbors what they might think. Maybe they would think I was calling a member of our family. But no, I was calling a bull calf. And by the way, he knows his name now, and he comes running when we call him. So that's Dopey. Rick, electric cars. Now, I did a thumbnail calculation. I don't have it in front of me right at the moment, but I thought about electric cars. And, Volvo plans, according to the Wall Street Journal, Volvo plans to go electric and abandon conventional car engines by 2019. So the automobile manufacturing company, Volvo, expects that all of their vehicles will be either fully electric or will be hybrid vehicles by 2019. Now, that presents a problem. If all the auto manufacturers switch to what they're touting is clean energy, which it's not, electricity, that our grid in the United States will not be able to provide enough energy to charge all of these vehicles. It takes an enormous amount of energy to push a car or pull a car up or down hills or just down the highways and byways of this country. And my calculations, and they're unofficial, it's just my thoughts, show that our power grid cannot sustain all of us driving electric cars and plugging them in and charging them. You have any thoughts on that, Rick?
The thing that I don't like about electric cars is the battery. The thing that holds the charge is made with extremely toxic metals. They're hard to get rid of in dump sites and things like that. They cause cancer if they get into the drinking water. You know what? There is a road up in Montana that powers the lights by putting solar panels directly in the road itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, why not?
And it charges the car. In other words, the road feeds to the car and the power around it for, lights and whatever else they need. I like that idea because, of course, a solar panel is made with crystals that one can grow just like you would a carrot. Mm-hmm. And you have to prepare it just like a carrot. You take the top off, you peel the outside off, da-da-da-da-da. Same thing with a crystal, where you cleave the crystal and so on. And I did a study and found that it was cheaper to set up a growing operation if you're going to use solar panels for 7 or more homes. if you're going to do up to 7 homes in a neighborhood with solar panels, it's cheaper to make your own panel than buy them and have to replace them periodically. They do wear out, just like light bulbs and other kinds of things that wear out. They have a life expectancy, they get damaged over a period of time. I think that the cars should have, these electric cars should have something like a solar sail, where the thing opens up and you capture the light, and that's how you charge it. Now that would be a design that would be kind of cool. We're already doing that with space travel. That, we have what we call light sails, and that's what they do. They deploy these very thin membranes out, and they capture large quantities of solar radiation, and that's how you power the thing. I think that that's our future, something where we're sailing in space.
I was thinking this morning about this discussion that we're having right this moment, and I was thinking about just how much surface area are we talking about for a home to be able to charge the batteries, to have enough current, not to run, let's say, a couple fans at night, maybe ceiling fans, some electric lights. We're talking about LED-type lights or compact fluorescent lights or fluorescent lights. The refrigerator, maybe a freezer. How many solar panels does it take? How many square feet does it take? And I have a number that I think is, it's a thumbnail sketch. About 450 square feet. 450 square feet of solar panels in order to provide enough current to charge batteries so that you have enough electricity to get through the night. Now that would be on a pretty bright day. Now on an overcast day, that's not going to cut it. You're going to need more than that. More square feet of panels. And that's the problem, Rick. It takes a lot of square feet of solar panels to generate electricity. Right this moment, when I was checking on Dopey, I ran in, looked at the meter for the solar harvest, if you will. And we were at one moment we were generating about 2,000 watts of power with our panels. And next moment, literally the next moment, about 850 watts or so. So it changes as the clouds block the sunlight. But 850 watts, let me just put that in dollars and cents. 850 watts would be about 8.5 cents worth of electricity per hour. So class, look at your electric bill, and if you figure that during bright sunlight, you might be able to generate 20 cents worth of electricity per hour. And this is just economic terms. 20 cents worth of electricity per hour at 10 cents a kilowatt, which is what our electric costs are here in this part of Missouri. You can see that it takes a lot of solar panels. So what you have to do, if you're going to pursue this direction, you're going to have to reduce your consumption. And there are things that you can't do economically, things that don't make much sense economically. And what are they? Well, an electric clothes dryer. Makes absolutely no sense if you're going to power that with solar panels. What else doesn't make sense? An electric hot water heater, and an electric stove, and an electric oven, and in many cases, an electric toaster. And, one of those electric griddles that you might have on your countertop. So things that heat electrically use an enormous amount of current. And that's where most of your electric bill's going. And if you switch to compact fluorescent lighting, or, which I would not want to do at this point, I would want to switch to LED lighting, that's going to be your best bang for the buck in the long run. You're going to get the most number of lumens per watt of energy used. Rick, do you have any comments on that? Do you agree with what I said?
Well, the technology is changing, and now our efficiency in conversion has quadrupled in just 1 year. Mm-hmm. I think our future is somehow harnessing the light. I think the best power I've ever seen is the way the state of Oregon does it, with buoys out in the tide going up and down with the motion of the earth. Nova Scotia has a 60-foot tide change every day, and that's enough to power the entire eastern seaboard without ever having to go back to nuclear power. Oh, and by the way, they've just given a green light for them to turn the reactors back on at Fukushima. How's that work?
Yeah, and I read an article about that as well this morning, and it's the article that I read says the Japanese utility Tokyo Electric Power Company, and we know it as TEPCO, TEPCO, has received approval to operate reactors for the first time since 2011, their meltdown. And it says on Wednesday, Nuclear Regulation Authority said TEPCO's 2 reactors in northern Japan meet the new stricter safety standards. And the authority unanimously, makes me feel good, they unanimously approved a draft certificate for reactors number 6 and 7, making it the first step in the process toward restarting them. And portions of the plant's reactors were damaged in the 2007 earthquake. Now, Rick, I'm looking at a picture of this particular electric plant that has the nuclear reactors. Now, did they jack up all these reactors and raise them higher above sea level than they were before?
No, they haven't done anything. You're going to leave them right where they are? Same problem.
That's the point I'm getting at.
A real problem with the New Madrid fault line and the 20 reactors on that one. I'm very concerned about New Madrid. I guess it's New Madrid. Is it New Madrid? New Madrid
fault line.
That has 20 reactors on it.
And that's in the United States. And that's a distance away from us. But that is a concern. Class, almost no matter where you live in the United States, you are downwind from a reactor. Dr. Richard Allen Miller is with us, and if you'd like to go to his website and buy some of his materials, his books, his audio books, richardallenmiller.com, richardalanmiller.com. Rick, you got a special going on? You got?
Well, yes, we do, and my audio books are out, and if you buy all 3 of them, they're $10 a piece, and the amount of total information on each one of those discs is staggering. You can't play them with CD players because they're in files, they're MP3 files. There's 9 of them on each, nine classes with all the original download rare book libraries. And I'm going to start another program for subscription like we used to do with Shareware. I'm going to add a rare book download library of very rare books that I have in my library and others that are now in domain, Crowley, Pure of a Lifetime, whatever, and have those available for people that are interested, subscribing maybe $35 a year. I don't know yet what we're going to do in that regard. And then what I'll do is upload new books every couple of weeks so that there's a reason for you to want to come back to my site. I have 15 audiobooks that are coming out. I'm just finishing up audiobook number 6, and when that's finished, I'll upload those. These are courses that I taught a long time ago, laying a foundation for what I'm going to propose as a new direction in physics. I had some friends over that were military that have been buffing up, trying to make themselves fit physically. And I suggested that, like hypnosis, there are altered states where your strength is the strength of 10, like a woman that can rip a car door off. And that is not having anything to do with adrenaline. Adrenaline kicks her into another or altered universe where the rules are different. And right now, the proposal that I'm making is that just in the amount of time I've talked to you on this, all of you have gone through probably 12 to 20 altered states of consciousness where you can do things. We're constantly going in and out of these places, and we don't realize it. When you're daydreaming, you're capable of doing things you can't do in a conscious waking state. And that's where the new directions in physics are going, is the study and use of altered states of consciousness as tools in a toolbox. We're going to find that our 21st century medicines are all primarily psychedelics. Mushrooms, other kinds of things would trigger the mechanisms in your mind that allow you to enter these universes where the rules are different. And this is a new direction in physics. It's very exciting. We'll call it magic as an art form. And it's interesting because the military is really interested in this. Super soldiers basically were ones that could control autonomic functions using toys like biofeedback. Anyway, that's what I've got going right now is the metaphysics, and I believe that it's going to lay a foundation for my path working with next.
Rick, when you talk about these audiobooks, how do we get them? Where do we go? What website?
Well, you go to my website, richardalanmiller.com. I'm linked with Kerry Cassidy. I'm linked with Facebook. I'm linked with Twitter. When I post something on my website, it posts everywhere. So if you want to go to my website, I have a store there that's richardalanmiller.com/store/ something like that.
Okay. Very good. Very good. Hey, Rick, we're talking about the...
I get used to sales. I can't believe that there's something out there dogging me, trying to hold me back. It's interesting, and I don't know why. Well, they're opening my packages and taking things out of them with intent.
Rick, maybe if we talked about something inconsequential, maybe if we talked about something trivial, maybe if we talked about something that doesn't matter, like, hey, who's got the best hamburgers in Medford, Oregon? How about that? If we talked about that.
No, that's what they're doing here.
Maybe they leave you alone. We come back, Rick. I'd like to talk about the new Madrid fault line and a really serious earthquake we had. We'll be back. Class, we were talking about the new Madrid fault. And the new Madrid fault is a fault that's about, between 120 and 150 miles long. Starts in Illinois, on the Illinois-Missouri border, and it goes south. It includes St. Louis, Missouri, and it falls along the Mississippi River area, part of the Ohio River, where they join. So it includes Illinois, Missouri, Kentucky, Tennessee, and Arkansas. And the fault ends just a little bit south of the lower portion of Tennessee. So it's pretty long, and there was an earthquake, a pretty strong earthquake, about M7.5, on December 16th in 1811. And it continued through January of 1812. This earthquake was so violent that it made the Mississippi River run backwards. Literally, it made the Mississippi River run backwards. It's hard to believe that, but in 1811 and 1812, a series of earthquakes that began in the New Madrid fault line in Missouri were felt as far away as Ohio and South Carolina. The soil beneath the Mississippi River temporarily rose, and temporarily changing the course of the Mississippi River so that it ran backward for a short time. And there are, well, we're having more and more earthquakes all the time, aren't we, Rick? Isn't this a huge concern?
Well, we talked about the weather earlier. That's part of what's going on, is that the weather is changing, and with that come earthquakes, storms, and the rest of it.
Mm-hmm. We also talked about Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. All right. Is your concern related to Matt Stein's 400 Chernobyls? Meaning, okay, so we have some kind of an event and the grid goes down, and then we have a tough time keeping the generators running to keep the cooling systems operational for these nuclear reactors. That
we have
my understanding, it can take a year. It's going to
happen shortly. The grid. I mean, what about North Korea? You know, posturing and talking about, you know, letting off an EMP to just show us something. I mean, it doesn't take anything, and we're down back into the Stone Age for, 3 years.
I'm looking at the equipment, almost within my reach right here at this broadcast desk. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 monitors. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 pieces of computer equipment that are powered with processors of some kind. And then across the studio, there are about 7 computers. And then you add to that an electronic telephone and another piece of electronic gear that connects me to the internet. Put all that together, probably not much of that would survive an EMP. And it's not like I've encouraged it to fail. It's just the way it is. And it's that way in every home. Same kind of equipment you've got in your home, same kind of equipment in most broadcast studios. How much of it is hardened against an EMP? Probably very, 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 very little. All right, so even if our solar array were to survive, even if our inverter were to survive, I'm sure the batteries, the nickel-iron batteries will survive, the battery bank and the cells. I'm sure that'll survive. But the rest of it probably won't. So Vinny's going to be on vacation, while he rebuilds from the destruction of the EMP, if that's what we have. And so if you think that you're going to get your news from television, and radio, and the internet, I think that's not going to happen the way you think it ought to happen. Because if the grid goes down, pretty much everything else goes down, including the Chinese factory outlet and their ordering system. And even if their ordering system were to be able, if they could repair it and get it back up online, within a couple weeks, great. Who are they going to order from? Because those businesses are going to have difficulty. And those businesses that manufacture things still need raw materials. And where are they going to get them from? Especially when you consider that our highways and byways are going to be clogged with, let's say, 1/7 of the vehicles being susceptible to an EMP. So think about what happens when you have just one failure of one car on the highways and byways. Just one guy has a problem with his car, and it shuts down. Fan belt breaks, serpentine belt breaks, car overheats, runs out of fuel, gets a flat tire, whatever it is. That one car that fails really blocks traffic for miles, right? So imagine 1 out of 7 vehicles failing because they can't sustain the EMP. Now we got a huge problem. How do we even get to where those vehicles are to pull them off the road and move them out of the way? Especially since our brilliant government and the departments of transportation have set up these cheese graters. And they've limited our access to the grassy medians where we could park all these vehicles that failed safely out of the way. Now, they put up cheese graters, so we can't even do that. So think about that, class. That's a big problem. Rick, your comments?
Well, yeah, you're hitting it right on the... Well, I don't know what else to say. We should turn the switch off. That's it. And now they're talking about turning Fukushima back on. What did they not learn? And now they're also reporting a major radioactive pit out near Fukushima, out in the water somewhere. What's that all about?
Yeah, and didn't they also just realize that the groundwater has been contaminated because, well, the measurement system was off a little bit, and they actually did contaminate the groundwater in that part of Japan.
Yeah, I mean,
and you can read about that.
What do you think it's doing to the ocean? What do you think it's doing to everything in the food chain?
One of our instructors went from across the pond to California, probably about a year ago, maybe a little longer. And he brought his radiation detection equipment with him. And he came up with the same readings that NETC is coming up with, the same readings with his equipment. So he verified them. And he said that he was picking up, if I remember correctly, about 1,100 counts per minute on the California shoreline, the Pacific shoreline. And so where's that coming from? Well, certainly it's not. Well, now it's background radiation, but before Fukushima, it was not background radiation. We didn't have those levels.
We've got a serious problem going on here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And Rick, I'm noticing more and more deaths, more and more cancers with people we know, and families that we know of, more than ever before. Cancer is it's common now. It didn't used to be common. Are you seeing that same thing in your neck of the woods?
Everybody is concerned. I really don't know what's going to happen. I'm very concerned because if we don't do something now, there won't be a seventh epoch. That's that.
Now, when you talk about an epoch, you're talking about a mass extinction, right?
Yeah, and then the next go around that man gets to try it again. Man survives each time there's a mass extinction. Man still survives. The problem is there won't, even if you were able to survive, there won't be anything to come back to. That's my concern.
Rick, I'm looking at NETC.com. NETC.com, class.
Yeah, nuclear.
It's a website that shows.
Yeah.
And they have these little symbols that relate to the level of background radiation or elevated levels of radiation. And they are ranked from Radcon 1, RADCON 1, Radcon 2, which is a rising level, Radcon 3, elevated, Radcon 4, concern/watch, Radcon 5, alert. So I'm looking at a map of the United States. It looks lit up like you can't believe. And I'm going to count the number of Radcon 4 concern and watch symbols. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 of them. If you want to count the number of Radcon 3, which is an elevated amount of radiation, wow. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. 21 of them. So, where are they? Well, let's see. Let me go in and zoom in a little bit. Okay. So if you want to know where the Radcon 4s are, Washington State, California, Southern California, Colorado, Illinois, Tennessee, North Carolina. And really? That's pretty serious in my book. I'd be concerned about it. Class, why don't you go to NETC.com, NuclearEmergencyTrackingCenter.com. Class, if you're interested in following Richard Allen Miller, you can go to his Facebook page, docram.com, doc, D-O-C, as in doctor, R-A-M, as in Richard Allen Miller, docram.com. If you're interested in buying some of his books, that would be richardallenmiller.com, Richard, A-L-A-N, Miller.com. Two things I hope we have time to talk about, Rick. Number one, are we suffocating in our own toxic air? It seems that...
well, the smoke here in Oregon was pretty toxic. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, I don't know about what you guys went through, but I'm still sick from it.
I was talking with Kurt Wilson, and he's one of our instructors out in Idaho. And the fires there were so huge that he was choking. And I said, would you like to come on the air and talk about it? And he said, I can't do it. I can't breathe. Even though they had respirators and masks and so forth, he still had a tough time. He was unable to tell us about it because he couldn't breathe because of the fires. Now, class, think about that. You know, you could have some neighbor who's inconsiderate burning some garbage next to you and you're downwind of that. That's a problem. You could have some careless or reckless person start a fire, throwing a cigarette butt, or intentionally starting a fire in the woods. That could be a huge problem. Think about that. And where are you going to go? Where are you going to go? So plan for that just in case there's a potential for that in your neck of the woods. Rick, in England, they are trying to ban diesels as quickly as they can, diesel engines, and they're going to be increasing taxes, at least what I've read, to stop people from using diesels. And I'm looking at the smog, the smoke. It looks pretty thick there. And so they're blaming it on diesels right now. I don't get it. I don't get it because if you look at where England is, it's right on the coast. How come they don't have winds to blow all this, you know, out to the ocean? I don't understand. I really don't understand. But evidently it's a big problem there. Do you have any comments on that before the next topic?
I just, it was a shame. I remember I built this log cabin up in Washington that was going to last 400 years, and it burnt to the ground last year in the Omak fire. It's interesting how everything changes.
Yeah, very sad. Rick, I want to grow some plants, and I know some others want to start plants inside. Maybe mushrooms, maybe lettuce, but whatever we want to grow. What is the best light spectrum that we should use? What color should it be? LED, compact fluorescence?
Each thing is different now. That's why they're using LEDs now in vertical aquaculture, because each plant is bandwidth specific. Broccoli likes this bandwidth, cauliflower likes that, and they're different. And so to get maximum growth, they're using LEDs, which use 1/10 the power and are bandwidth specific, so that you go in and you deliver very cheaply and very inexpensively the light that would normally otherwise use up a lot of power just in heat loss.
So are you saying that a full spectrum light may not be the best way to go?
No,
full spectrum?
That's right. That's correct.
Fluorescent. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
And that is, each plant is different, and that's why now you have bandwidth specifics, and we're using LEDs where we're very specific on this is the light we're going to give broccoli, and this is the light we're going to give asparagus.
Mm-hmm. And so the brief amount of reading that I've done, just whetting my appetite on this particular subject, blues and reds seem to be two of the more dominant colors that we should...
Well, long ultraviolet, again, has a type of energetics on chlorophyll that's why you use the more long ultraviolet when you grow like lamps, when you're using and growing marijuana or other kinds of things that prefer light bands from high altitude. And you bet,
interesting.
You know, that's why you choose those bandwidths.
Rick, is this something that we can go into more depth in a future broadcast?
Yeah, this is an area that I've done a lot of research in, just in pot, growing marijuana, and what bandwidths want to be used and why, and how they change.
Well, let's talk about that in a coming up broadcast. Dr. Richard Allen Miller is with us. Rick, thanks so much for being with us.
My pleasure.
DocRam.com, Richard Allen Miller.